So in last week's Snare Saturday video, I showed you how to install snare wires on a modern snare drum, where all you need is a drum key. But what happens if you have a vintage snare drum and the vintage components aren't as user-friendly, and you might need a few other tools or figure out ways to secure the snare wires to those components? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be covering in this Snare Saturday video, and I'm going to be using a late 60s Ludwig Supraphonic as the example. For those of you who might be new or unfamiliar with the channel, hi, welcome. My name is Nick Costa and I am a drummer from Philly, PA. Now before we dive into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload to the channel. So whether you are a fellow drummer, educator, or somebody who needs to help a drummer in their life install snare wires to a drum, and you come across a snare drum where a drum key or a screwdriver isn't going to help you secure the snare wires to the throw-off, well, this video is going to help you see exactly what you need to do to make sure your snare wires stay on the drum and don't come loose over time. So let's head over to the workbench and get started. So what we have here is a 60s Ludwig Supraphonic, also known as the LM400. It's a 5x14 chrome over aluminum snare drum. And the reason why I wanted to use this drum is because of two reasons. One, the butt plate has screws, which are flathead screws. You see this a lot in older drums. The other reason why is because of the throw-off. If you have an older throw-off, you may have one where the bottom is a bunch of holes rather than having that end plate that you can adjust with either smaller tension rods or screws. So you got to figure out how to get your wires to stay secure so they don't come loose over time. So just like everything else, step number one is to take that fine-tune knob and loosen it almost all the way like we did there. You then can flip the drum over. Now, since this butt plate does use flathead screws to secure the cord, you're going to want a flathead screwdriver to loosen them. Once again, you don't have to do it all the way, just enough to be able to get that cord out between the butt plate and the actual plate that's on the inside of it. So once you do that, you can flip it around. Depending on whoever applied this before, it might be lightly knotted, whatever that is. You want to get that as loose as possible. Now, as you can see, this could be a little time consuming depending on how tight that is knotted together. So if this is an old set of snare wires where you are looking to replace them or the string itself is pretty mangled, just cut it and remove it that way. I will put a link in the description below where you can get snare wire cord or snare wire string, which comes in a really long length and you can cut it to size. So you remove your snare wires. Let's say you want to replace them with something different, or you have to swap out the bottom head and you're ready to put wires back on. The ones that I have here are the Canopus vintage 20-strand dry wires. These work really well on this particular drum. I like the sound of it. So once again, you get your wires, you place them on the bottom head, and at this point you feed the string through those eye openings of your hoop on either side. Once you do, once again, you want to make sure those snare wires are centered on the drum, not towards one side versus the other. And then once you do, you have to feed the string through the butt plate, which has this outside plate here, and then there's another plate on the inside. So that way when you put the strings through and you tighten down on the screws, it squeezes it together and it will hold the string in place. Now, once again, you want to make sure your snare wires are straight, because if they're not, that causes a problem. Then you can hold down that end plate, use a screwdriver to tighten those flathead screws on either side. Once you have that down, flip it to the throw-off side. Now, this can be a little tricky, so there's a couple ways that you can do this. You can leave it as is and try and feed the string through some of these smaller holes, or you can do what I do, loosen it all the way until you can get this bottom plate to slide off like so. Now, once you do this, there isn't really a right or wrong way to do this. My most recommended way is to just go through the two end loops and then put one string on the top, the other string on the bottom. I feel like that gives it equal tension. So in this case, what I would do is I would feed through this bottom one, and the Ludwig cord is really thin, so it makes it a whole lot easier to get this string through compared to some newer strings or cords that you might come across that are thicker, and makes it really difficult to try and get that through. Once you can do that, so I went through the bottom and then the top, and then I'll go through the bottom piece right here. So once I do that, I can fix it later. Now the other side, I'm going to do the opposite. So I'll go through the top, then the bottom, and then in this case, since the other one's going through that bottom piece right there, I'll go through the top piece, or that top hole right there in the middle. Now once I have that together, I can reattach this plate to the throw off itself, and that's secure, so we're good. Now I can adjust the string itself. So we want to hold down on that end plate, and then I'm pulling the string. That way I can get it nice and taut and it's not loose. Now once that's done, it's pretty secure, and you can see that our wires are straight. They're not crooked or bent, warping in any way like so. So once you do that, you just take the two ends and you tie them together. You can knot these together in whatever your preferred way to do it. My way is just to, you know, twist them together like you do when you're starting to tie your shoes once or twice, and then you're good. If you want to, for added security, you can, before you loop this together, you can take both ends, wrap them around the back end of this plate here and bring them back, and then start knotting them. Some people do that for added security. The string isn't long enough for me to do that. Plus, with this drum, I haven't noticed it slipping, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, they're pretty loose, but again, since that fine-tuned knob is pretty loose, you can take it, tighten it, and now adjust the preference, and you can see there's plenty of threading left on the top portion. So again, if you want to, you can still make these wires loose. You can also make them a little bit tighter, depending on whatever gig you're on or your preference. And again, there's not too much tension on anything. Now, one final tip. With older drums like this, especially if you are using string, or even newer drums, if you are using string and you want it added security, you can also tie a little knot, once again, just by twisting those two end pieces together. And I'm trying to do it where I can see and not have my head block y'all. Like that. That way, if for some reason they do start to come loose, that knot will catch as this is pulling down, but they're pretty tight, so you're set to go. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and get this drum over to the kit so you can hear what it sounds like. So a couple things to keep in mind with vintage drums, specifically vintage Ludwig drums. If you don't want to have to wrestle the old throw-offs, you can install the new Ludwig P88AC throw-off in its place because it uses the same spacing for the mounting screws. Now, if for some reason you have a vintage snare drum and you need to replace the throw-off but you're unsure of what to get, simply take the two holes where the mounting screws are, go to the middle of where the hole is and measure from the top to the bottom. That's going to let you know the length that you need between those two mounting screw holes. So if you have another throw-off lying around, you can always just measure the mounting screw openings on the throw-off to see if it lines up. Or if you are looking to upgrade to the Ludwig P88AC throw-off, you can simply search online and it'll let you know if it is the same measurement or not. Now, if you notice that the hole spacing for the P88AC throw-off doesn't align with the throw-off hole spacing on whatever drum that you have, since you have the measurement of the distance between the top and the bottom hole, you can go on a website like drumfactorydirect.com, search through all of the throw-off options that they have, and find the one that fits the same spacing. I did put a link to drumfactorydirect.com in the description. That way, if you do need a new throw-off, you can search their site for everything that they have available. Now, if you need to get any snare wire component, which could be the wires themselves, the snare string, because this is a vintage snare drum, or you may be looking for some particular tools to help you make this a bit easier, I've put affiliate links to all of my preferences in the description below. And if you have any other additional questions on how to install snare wires to a vintage drum, maybe the gear that I am playing in this video, or anything else, feel free to leave all of that in the comment section below, and I will try my best to answer it. Also, I'd love to know, did this video help you with installing snare wires on your vintage snare drum? If so, please let me know in the comment section below. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. That not only makes it easier for others to find it, it is a free and easy way to support the channel. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video on how to install snare wires on a vintage snare drum. And until next time, see you later.